The prison nurse they should have feared. That night, the storm hit Blackridge Prison as if it wanted to drag the entire hill off the map. The wind screamed through the razor wire. Rain hammered the concrete roof in heavy waves. The security lights outside flickered again and again, making the guard towers appear and disappear behind sheets of white water. Blackridge Correctional Facility was not a place people came to be saved. It was where people were locked away, forgotten, and sometimes buried alive inside paperwork. At 2:13 a.m., the entire East Segregation Wing lost power. It was not a normal outage. 7 seconds before darkness swallowed the corridor, the hallway cameras shut themselves off. 5 seconds before that, the transport gate opened with an internal code. And 3 seconds before the alarm began screaming, Claire Donovan heard a small metallic click behind the wall of the medical room. She was standing beside the medicine cabinet, holding a roll of gauze. Denise Walker, the young medical assistant behind her, flinched hard when the lights went out. "Oh my God, what is happening?" Claire did not answer right away. She simply stood still and listened. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Then she said quietly, "That wasn't the storm." Denise turned toward her. "How do you know that?" Claire placed the gauze on the counter. "Because the alarm should have sounded before the emergency door opened." Denise did not get the chance to ask anything else. Heavy boots thundered down the corridor. The steel door to the medical room burst open. 4 correctional officers rushed inside. Between them was an inmate in an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed behind his back. His left shoulder was wet with blood. His face was bruised. His lips were pale from blood loss, but his eyes were awake, too awake, as if everything was happening exactly the way he had planned. Captain Mason Hargrove came in last, a taser in his hand, his face red with anger. "Put him on the table. Stitch him up, no questions." Claire pulled on a pair of gloves. "How long has he been bleeding?" Hargrove looked at her as if she were a broken piece of equipment. "I just said no questions." Claire stepped toward the inmate. "I'm asking because if you want him alive for questioning, I need to know." Hargrove clenched his jaw. "Nurse Donovan, you do not run this night shift." Claire did not look at him. "No. But his blood is on my floor." The room went silent for half a beat. Denise stared at Claire with fear and surprise. Claire bent over the wound. It was not as deep as she expected. It had missed the artery. It was not an attack meant to kill. The cut had been placed with precision. Serious enough to get him out of his cell. Not serious enough to take his life. Claire lifted her eyes to the inmate. "You arranged this?" The inmate smiled faintly. It was a tired smile. Not arrogant, not insane. It was the smile of a man who had finally found an exit after digging through darkness for years. He whispered, "I needed to see you." Hargrove frowned. "See her?" Claire pressed gauze against the wound. "Be quiet." The inmate did not listen. He looked straight into her eyes. Then he said a name Claire Donovan had not heard in 7 years, a name that did not exist in Blackridge's employee records, a name that was not on her nursing license, not on her apartment lease, not on any document connected to her current life. He said, "Evelyn Cross." The air inside the medical room froze. Denise whispered, "Who is Evelyn Cross?" No one answered. Claire kept the gauze pressed against the inmate's shoulder. Her face did not change. Her breathing did not quicken. Her eyes did not blink more than usual, but her right hand tightened for exactly half a second. Only half a second. A normal person would not have noticed. But the inmate noticed. He said softly, "They said you were dead." Claire leaned lower. Her voice was calm enough to frighten him. "If you say one more word, I'll let Hargrove stitch this wound with his shaking hands." Denise almost laughed from the tension. Hargrove did not. He stepped closer. "What did you just call me?" Claire looked up. "I said he needs stitches." At that exact moment, the old speaker in the ceiling crackled to life. A voice came through. It was not the dispatch officer. It was not the warden. It was not anyone who should have had access to the system. Evelyn Cross. Claire stood still. The storm outside seemed to fall away. The voice continued. 7 years is long enough." Denise went pale. Hargrove pointed the taser at the inmate. "Who is talking?" The inmate lay on the table, lips white, eyes still locked on Claire. "They came for the black box." Claire looked at him. "What?" He struggled for air. "Not your USB. The other one." In that moment, a memory flashed behind Claire's eyes, a hallway glowing red with fire, a 10-year-old girl hiding under a table, a man in a bulletproof vest telling her, "Don't go back, Evie. No matter what you hear, don't go back." But she had gone back, and that was why every year on October 14, Claire Donovan mailed an envelope of cash to an address in Ohio. No return name, no note, just 3 handwritten words. For Lily. Claire blinked once. The memory vanished. The medical room returned, the rain, the alarm, Denise's breathing, footsteps approaching down the corridor. Claire pulled open the bottom drawer. Inside there was not only gauze. There was a small flashlight, a seatbelt cutter, a medical key ring, and an old envelope sealed with white medical tape. Hargrove saw it. His eyes changed, only for an instant. But Claire saw it, and she understood immediately. He was not surprised. He knew something was there. Claire looked at Hargrove. "You opened the East Transport Gate." Hargrove did not answer, but his hand tightened around the taser. The inmate on the table whispered, "I told you, the traitor isn't outside the prison." Claire straightened. For the first time that night, Denise saw the real person behind Claire's calm eyes. Not a quiet prison nurse. Not the woman who always took the worst shifts, who was always called by her last name, who was always ordered around as if she did not have a first name. She saw someone who had survived places darker than Blackridge, someone who had learned that in locked rooms, the most dangerous person is not the one holding a knife, it is the one holding the keys. Claire looked at Denise. "Lock the medication cabinet, turn off the camera in this room." Denise's voice shook. "I'm not allowed to," Claire said. Denise. The young woman went silent. Claire lowered her voice. "Do you want to live through tonight?" Denise nodded. "Then listen to me." Outside the room, the footsteps stopped in front of the door. The voice on the speaker returned. "Bring her out." Hargrove raised the taser toward Claire. "I'm sorry, Donovan." Claire looked at him. "No, you're not." Then the red emergency lights went out. The entire room fell into darkness. In that darkness, Hargrove heard only one small sound. His wrist was twisted backward. The taser hit the floor. Claire Donovan spoke beside his ear. "I tried to just be a nurse." 1 second later, the medical room door flew open, and the night truly began. 8 hours before Claire Donovan twisted the correctional captain's wrist in the dark, she was sitting alone in her car outside the gates of Blackridge Prison. She had turned off the engine, but she had not stepped out. It was not raining yet, but clouds had dropped low over the mountains of northern Pennsylvania, covering everything in a gray color like cold ash. Blackridge Correctional Facility sat more than 30 miles from the nearest town. Local people did not call it a prison. They called it the box on the hill, the box where people were sent when no one wanted to say their names anymore. Claire looked through the windshield, concrete walls, razor wire, guard towers, floodlights, a place built to keep people inside. But for the last 7 years, Claire had often thought Blackridge kept her safe from the world outside. She looked at the clock, 5:42 p.m. Her shift began at 6. She always arrived 18 minutes early. Not because she was more dedicated than anyone else, because she did not like walking into a place before she had time to study it. On the passenger seat sat a gas station salad, a bottle of water, and an old yellow envelope. The envelope had no stamp, no address. Inside were $800 in cash and a photograph that had been folded many times. Claire did not need to open it to know who was in the picture. Lily. 17 years old now. The last time Claire had seen her, Lily had been 10, hiding under a table in a burning house, both hands over her ears, eyes open so wide that Claire knew the girl would never truly sleep peacefully again. Claire had carried Lily out, but she had not saved Lily's father. That was the part she had never forgiven herself for. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Claire took it out. Unknown number. She stared at the screen. She did not answer. The call ended. A message appeared immediately after. "You still send money to the girl. That's sweet." Claire did not move. She did not blink. She only stared at the words until the screen dimmed by itself. Then she opened the small compartment under the dashboard and took out a cheap second phone, the kind registered to no one. She dialed the only number saved in it. No one answered. Only voicemail. Claire spoke very softly. "Ray, there may be trouble tonight. Don't let anyone through the side gate unless you get direct confirmation from me." She paused, her eyes still on the prison gate. "And if anyone asks about Lily, you've never heard that name." She ended the call, sat still for 3 more seconds, then picked up her employee badge. It read Claire Donovan, correctional nurse, prison. Nurse, a normal name, a job nobody fought for, a life small enough not to attract attention. That had been her plan. Live quietly, work, send money, never look back. But the message on her phone had told her one thing. Someone had found Lily, and if they had found Lily, then they had found Claire too. The main gate opened after security checked her badge. The old guard in the booth was Ray Mullins, 63 years old, silver-haired, slightly bent at the back, but with sharper eyes than most young officers in the prison. He looked at Claire through the glass. "Early again, Donovan." Claire took back her badge. "Ray." Ray looked up at the sky. "Storm's coming in hard. Radio says we might lose power across the area. When was the backup generator last tested?" Ray raised an eyebrow. A normal person would say, "Hope I get home before the rain." Claire put the badge in her pocket. "Normal people don't work night shift at Blackridge." Ray chuckled, but his smile faded when he saw her eyes. "Something wrong?" Claire looked toward the camera above the side gate. "Did anyone ask about me today?" Ray was silent for a beat. Someone from the regional office called, asked for the medical shift schedule. Claire asked, "Name?" Didn't leave one. "Voice, male, calm, the kind of man used to giving orders without raising his voice." Claire nodded. Ray lowered his voice. "You want me to tell the warden?" "No." "Donovan." Claire looked at him. "Ray, if that person comes back, don't try to be a hero." The old man laughed. "I thought you were the one who didn't do hero work." Claire answered, "I'm trying to quit." Ray looked at her longer than usual. He wanted to ask. But like most people who had worked in prisons long enough, Ray knew there were some doors you did not open unless the person inside was ready. He only said, "I'll keep an eye out." Claire nodded. "Thank you." That was the closest thing to affection she allowed herself. In 7 years, Ray had been the only person at Blackridge who left a hot cup of coffee outside Claire's medical room on snowy nights. No questions, no speeches, just the coffee. Some kindnesses were so small people could miss them, but to Claire they weighed as much as a promise. The Blackridge medical room did not look like a hospital. There were no families asking doctors questions in the hall, no smell of cheap coffee near a nurse's station. No flowers, no pictures, no windows facing a parking lot. Only white-painted brick walls, a metal examination table, 2 triple-locked medicine cabinets, a camera in the ceiling corner, and a red panic button under the desk. Claire turned on the lights. The first thing she checked was not the medication. It was the doors, main door, side door, hinges, magnetic locks, the gap beneath the wall. Only after that did she check the medicine cabinet. New nurses usually thought the medication was the most important thing in the medical room. Claire knew better. In a place like Blackridge, the most important thing was knowing who could walk in behind you. At 6:11, Denise Walker came in carrying a large coffee and a purple shoulder bag. Denise was 26, 6 months into the job, and still believed that if she treated people kindly, people would be kind in return. Claire did not hate that. It only worried her. Denise set down the coffee. "I hate storm shifts." Claire counted medication. "Storms make people more honest." Denise frowned. "You say things like you're in a crime movie." Claire wrote down the insulin count. "Crime movies get a lot wrong." Denise sat down. "I heard there's a new inmate tonight, segregation wing, sealed file." Claire's pen stopped for half a second. "Transferred from where?" "Federal. No name. Just a transport code." "You saw the file?" "No, but Tyler in door control said 3 pages were blacked out. Even the transfer reason was redacted." Claire closed the medicine cabinet. "Tyler talks too much. He likes me." "That is not a reason to trust him." Denise smiled. "Do you trust anyone?" Claire looked at the young woman. In her mind, she saw Lily under the table again, hands over her ears. Claire looked away. "Yes," Denise waited. "Who?" Claire answered. "Someone who has proven they won't sell you out when they're scared." Denise went quiet. Then she asked softly, "Has someone done that to you?" Claire did not answer. The medical room door opened before the question could stay in the air too long. Mason Hargrove stepped inside. Mason Hargrove was the night shift correctional captain at Blackridge. He was in his 40s, broad-shouldered, thickening around the waist under his uniform, with cropped hair and a voice always louder than necessary. But what caught Claire's attention was not his voice. It was his left hand. Hargrove had a habit of touching his wedding ring whenever he lied. That night, he entered the medical room and touched the ring 3 times in 10 seconds. He threw a thin file onto the desk. C-Wing gets meds at 7. D-Wing has 2 guys pretending to have stomach pain. Segregation is off limits unless I say otherwise. Claire opened the file. Medical requests still have to be checked. Hargrove looked at her. "Not tonight." Claire lifted her eyes. "Why? Because I said so." Denise lowered her face toward her coffee. Claire closed the file. "If an inmate dies because care was denied, the report will need your signature." Hargrove stepped closer. "You think I'm afraid of paperwork?" Claire looked at him. "No, I think you're afraid of something else." The air in the medical room cooled. Hargrove formed a thin smile. "Careful, Donovan. Quiet people live longer in here." Claire answered, "Only if they're quiet at the right time." Hargrove stared at her for a few more seconds. Then he turned to Denise. "And you, don't learn from her. She doesn't have friends in here." Denise blushed. Claire said nothing. But as Hargrove turned to leave the room, she saw the edge of the new inmate's file. One corner of paper had slipped out from the folder. Only one line was visible. "Transfer hold, cross confirmation pending." Claire stood still. Denise did not notice, but Claire did. For 7 years, she had changed her name, changed states, changed jobs, changed every habit. Yet tonight, inside a prison on a mountain, her old name had appeared in the file of a federal inmate. That meant one of 2 things. Either someone was looking for her, or someone was using her as bait. And Claire did not like either possibility. At 7:04, Claire and Denise went to C-Wing for medication rounds. C-Wing was where Blackridge kept long-term sick inmates, older inmates, or men too weak to cause real trouble. At least that was what the records said. In reality, it was where the prison put people it did not want to spend much effort caring for. Claire stopped at cell 18. Inside was Marcus Bell, 19 years old, thin, pale, with short hair. He had a congenital heart condition and was waiting for approval to be transferred to a proper medical facility. The transfer request had been sitting on the warden's desk for 3 months. No one had signed it. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed with one hand pressed to his chest. Claire looked at him through the bars. "How long has it hurt?" Marcus tried to smile. "You ask like I'm allowed to answer honestly." Claire turned to the officer beside them. "Open the door." The officer shook his head. Hargrove said medication only. Claire looked at Marcus. His lips had a faint blue tint. His breathing was shallow. "Not good," Claire said. "Open the door." The officer muttered, "Donovan." Claire turned fully toward him. "He has signs of low oxygen. If he collapses in that cell, you'll have to explain why you refused to open the door when medical staff requested access." The officer cursed under his breath, but he opened the door. Claire stepped inside and checked Marcus's pulse, pupils, and breathing. Marcus said quietly, "I don't want to die in here." Claire froze. The sentence hit her harder than she wanted to admit. Because 7 years ago, Lily's father had said something almost the same. "Not for me, for the girl." Claire placed 2 fingers on Marcus's wrist. "Look at me." Marcus looked at her. "You are not dying tonight." He gave a weak laugh. "Is that a promise?" Claire watched him for a moment. "I don't promise things I don't intend to keep." Denise stood outside the cell and heard it. For the first time, she understood why the old inmates in C Wing never caused problems when Claire was on duty. It was not because they feared her. It was because she was the only person who still looked at them like human beings. Claire gave Marcus his medication, adjusted his portable oxygen, and wrote a note on the chart. Before she left, Marcus said softly, "Nurse Donovan." Claire turned back. "There's a new guy in segregation. They walked him past C Wing this afternoon." Claire kept her voice normal. "What did you see?" He looked at the camera like he knew it was going to turn off. Claire did not move. Marcus continued, "And when he passed my cell, he said something." "What?" Marcus swallowed. "He said, 'Tell the night nurse that Raven isn't dead.'" Denise frowned. "Who is Raven?" Claire looked at Marcus. For 1 second, she was no longer in Blackridge. She was in a burning house, hearing gunfire outside, hearing a man shout, "Raven, get the girl out!" Claire blinked, came back to the present. She said, "You misheard him." Marcus shook his head. "No, he also said you would pretend I did." Claire said nothing else, because he was right. At 8:26, Claire returned to the medical room. She locked the door. "You know what Raven means?" Claire washed her hands. "No, you just lied very badly." Claire turned off the faucet. "Then you should forget it." "I'm not a child." Claire turned to face her. "In this prison, survival has nothing to do with age. It has to do with knowing when to be curious and when to leave the room." Denise went quiet, but she did not leave. Claire breathed out softly. She did not want Denise anywhere near this. She did not want Ray near it. She did not want Marcus near it. That was the problem with trying to live a normal life. No matter how small Claire tried to make herself, other people could still be standing too close when the past exploded. The desk phone rang. Claire answered. Hargrove's voice came through. "Medical. Prepare to examine the segregation inmate." Claire looked at Denise. "You said no one could approach him." "Orders changed." "From whom?" There was a very short silence. Then Hargrove said, "From the people who pay you." Claire knew he was lying, not because of the words, because of the hurry in his breathing. 10 minutes later, 2 officers brought the new inmate into the medical room. He was around 40, black hair threaded with gray, lean but solid, with the eyes of a man used to sleeping little and running often. The name on the file was Daniel Pike, but Claire knew it was not his real name. He sat on the examination table, hands cuffed in front of him. Claire checked the file. "You requested medical attention for chest pain?" Pike looked at the camera in the corner. "No." Denise frowned. "Then why are you here?" Pike looked at Claire. "Because I needed to know if you still recognize a lie." Claire kept her face empty. "I don't understand." Pike tilted his head. "Yes, you do." One officer barked. "Answer the nurse." Pike did not look at him. He spoke very quietly. "October 14th, Ohio. Yellow envelope." Claire stood still. Everything in the medical room seemed to slow down. Denise looked from Pike to Claire. "Claire?" Claire placed the file on the counter. "Leave the room." Denise shook her head. "No." Claire looked at her. "Denise, I'm not leaving you in here with 2 officers and a federal inmate." Pike said softly, "She should stay. Tonight you're going to need a witness." Claire looked at Pike. "Who are you?" He answered. "The man who pulled you out of the wreckage after you saved Lily." Claire said nothing. But inside her, a wall she had spent 7 years building showed its first crack. Pike lowered his voice. "I didn't come to hurt you, Evelyn." Denise inhaled sharply. Claire's eyes went cold. "Don't call me that," Pike said. "Then what should I call you?" "Claire Donovan, the name they forged for you. Or Raven, the name they still fear so much they had to bury it with 6 innocent people." Claire stepped closer. "You have 10 seconds to tell me the real reason." Pike looked directly at her. "Lily disappeared at 4:30 this afternoon. The room went completely still. No rain, no electric hum from the lights, only the sound of blood rushing in Claire's ears. Denise whispered, "Who is Lily?" Claire did not answer. She could not. Pike continued, "They don't need you dead anymore. They need what you kept, and they know how to make you give it up." Claire looked at the camera, then at the 2 officers. One avoided her gaze. The other touched his radio. Claire knew immediately. The room was no longer safe. She said to Denise, "Step back." Denise asked, "What is happening?" Claire did not take her eyes off the 2 officers. The night shift just changed the rules. Before anyone could move, the lights in the medical room flickered. Once, twice. Then the desk phone rang. Claire did not answer. Hargrove opened the door and stepped inside. His face was tight. "The exam is over," Claire said. "No." Hargrove looked at Pike. "Take him back to segregation." Pike smiled faintly. "Worried I'm saying too much, Captain?" Hargrove did not answer, but his hand touched his wedding ring again. Claire saw it. Pike saw it too. Pike said, "Did they promise to pay your debts, or did they promise to move your wife up the liver transplant list?" Hargrove lunged forward and grabbed Pike by the collar. "Shut your mouth." Claire stepped between them. "Let go." Hargrove looked at her. "You don't know what you're involved in." Claire answered, "I know exactly." He laughed coldly. "No, you think you're still the person you were back then? You're not. You're just a prison nurse nobody remembers." Claire looked at him. That should have hurt, but what hurt more was that he was half right. She had tried to become someone nobody remembered. She had tried to become smaller, normal. She had tried to believe that if she quietly saved enough people, the old debt would become lighter. But Lily was missing, and everything Claire had buried was climbing out of the ground. Claire said, "You know where Lily is." Hargrove was silent. That was enough. Pike looked at Claire. "Evelyn." Claire turned. Pike said, "They want the black box before midnight. If not, the girl disappears forever." Denise covered her mouth with one hand. Claire bent down and opened the medical supply case. Hargrove frowned. "What are you doing?" Claire took out a roll of tape, a small flashlight, and a seatbelt cutter. Then she looked at Hargrove. "I'm taking about 10 minutes off from being a nurse," Hargrove sneered. "You planning to fight the whole prison?" Claire answered, "No." She looked at the ceiling camera. "I'm planning to find the person controlling it." At that moment, all of Blackridge fell into darkness, and from the speaker system that voice came for the first time. "Evelyn Cross." Claire did not blink. The voice continued, "7 years is long enough." Pike closed his eyes. Denise trembled. Hargrove stepped back half a pace. Claire looked up at the old speaker in the ceiling. Then she said very softly, "Not long enough for me to forget your voice." Outside, the steel door to the east wing slammed shut. One magnetic lock sounded, then another, then another. It was not only the segregation wing being locked down, the medical room was being sealed in too. Ray Mullins called over the radio, his voice broken and full of static. "Donovan, the side gate just opened. I didn't open it. Do you copy?" "I didn't open." A heavy impact sounded. The radio cut off. Claire stood motionless. Ray was a good man. In a place like Blackridge, good men did not live long when they stood at the wrong door. Denise began to cry. "Claire, what do we do?" Claire looked at Pike. "Is Lily alive?" Pike answered, "If you move fast." Claire asked, "Where is the black box?" Pike looked straight at her. "I don't have it." Claire frowned. "Then who does?" Pike swallowed. "Lily's father hid it before he died." Claire felt her heart drop. "Where?" Pike said. "Inside the only thing you carried out of that burning house." Claire did not understand at first. Then she remembered the stuffed rabbit, the thing Lily had clutched when Claire carried her outside, the thing Claire had sent with the girl to Ohio, the thing she had never checked. Pike said, "You weren't keeping the evidence, Evelyn." Claire slowly raised her head. Pike continued, "You were protecting it for 7 years without even knowing." Outside the corridor, footsteps began moving toward the medical room. Not one person, many. Claire looked at Denise. "Stand behind me." Denise obeyed, shaking. Claire looked at Hargrove. "You have one chance left to choose the right side." Hargrove gave a rough laugh. "You don't understand. They have my wife's medical file. If I don't do what they say," Claire cut him off. "Then you sold a 17-year-old girl to save your own family." Hargrove fell silent. The sentence hit him. Not because he was innocent, because for the first time that night he had to hear exactly what kind of man he had become. Claire held the seatbelt cutter, not like a weapon, like a tool, because that was how she had always survived, not by using what she wished she had, by using what was already in her hand. The medical room door shook as Matt's voice outside said, "Open the door, Evelyn." Claire stepped to the emergency light switch. She looked at Denise. "When the lights go out, get down." Denise asked, "What about you?" Claire looked at the steel door. "I've been hiding long enough." She turned off the lights. Darkness swallowed the medical room. And in that darkness, the nurse Blackridge had underestimated finally remembered who she was.